My parents invited me to a fancy family dinner, then handed me a takeout. I am Ava, 34 years old, and despite building a successful career as a software engineer, I have spent my life chasing my parents' approval. When they invited me to an elegant family dinner last month, I thought maybe things were changing. After years of watching my siblings receive the royal treatment while I got the leftovers of their attention, I was finally being included. I should have known better. The text came 3 hours before. Important family celebration. Le Bernardin at 7. Dress appropriately. Let me tell you what happened next. Before I begin my story, where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe to hear more stories about standing up for yourself. I grew up in a comfortable middle-class suburb outside of Boston, the middle child sandwiched between my golden siblings. My older brother James was 4 years my senior, the firstborn son, who could do no wrong in my father Derek's eyes. My younger sister Amanda, 3 years younger than me, was the baby of the family, and my mother Sophia's pride and joy. From the earliest days I can remember, there was an invisible line drawn between us. They were the special ones. I was just Ava. Our home was spacious enough that we each had our own bedroom, but the differences were telling. James had the largest room with a private bathroom. Amanda had the bedroom with the window seat and built-in bookshelves. I had what used to be the guest room, the smallest bedroom at the end of the hall. My parents said it was because I was so independent, but even as a child I felt the message I was an afterthought. My father built his career as an investment banker, working long hours, but always finding time to attend James's baseball games or take Amanda shopping. Somehow my debate competitions and science fairs never made it onto his calendar. "Sorry, sweetheart, big meeting today," became his standard excuse, delivered without making eye contact, already focused on something more important on his phone. My mother was a society hostess who prided herself on maintaining the perfect image. She was on the board of several local charities and spent her days planning events, lunching with friends, and cultivating connections. Amanda became her mini-me, learning the art of social grace from an early age. My practical nature and interest in computers were foreign to her. "Ava, dear, no one wants to hear about coding at dinner," she would say with a tight smile when I tried to share my interests. In fourth grade, I won the school science fair with a computer program I had coded myself. My teacher was so impressed she called my parents personally. That evening at dinner, my father briefly said, "Good job on your project, Ava," before launching into an extended celebration of James making the junior varsity baseball team as a freshman. My mother brought out a special cake for him. My achievement warranted a passing comment. His deserved dessert. The pattern continued through middle school and high school. I threw myself into academics, finding validation in the praise of teachers and the objective measurement of grades. I graduated as valedictorian, giving a speech my parents politely applauded while looking at their watches. That same month, Amanda was accepted into the local ballet company's summer program, and my parents threw her a party with 50 guests. College should have been my escape, but the inequality followed me there too. I earned a scholarship to MIT for computer science, covering most of my tuition. My parents considered their financial obligations fulfilled by that scholarship. "You are so lucky to have that scholarship, Ava," my mother said. "We really need to focus on saving for Amanda's education now." I worked 2 part-time jobs throughout college to cover my living expenses, books, and the remaining tuition costs. Meanwhile, James attended Princeton with full parental support, including an apartment off campus and a new car. When it was Amanda's turn, she went to NYU, where my parents paid for everything, plus a monthly shopping allowance. During holidays and summer breaks, I would return home to find my bedroom had been gradually converted into storage space or a craft room. "Oh, we did not think you would mind," my mother would say, "since you are so independent." That word again. Independent. Their code for on your own. After graduation, I landed a job at a promising tech startup in Boston. At family gatherings, my career was an afterthought. "Ava does something with computers," my father would say vaguely if anyone asked. But James's every promotion at his father's friend's investment firm was announced like breaking news. Amanda's job at a fashion magazine, arranged through my mother's connections, was discussed with glowing pride. As the years passed, I built my career methodically and successfully. The startup I joined was acquired by a major tech company, giving me both financial security and professional recognition. I moved to New York, bought my own apartment, and created a life separate from my family's approval. We maintained obligatory contact holiday gatherings, the occasional Sunday dinner when I was in Boston, perfunctory birthday calls. Last year, I finally began to distance myself more definitively. After another Thanksgiving where my mother seated me at the kids' table with my cousin's children, while my siblings enjoyed the main table, I decided to prioritize my mental health. I declined Christmas claiming a work trip. I stopped calling regularly. When they did reach out, I kept conversations brief and noncommittal. I was 33 years old and finally realizing that the approval I sought would never come. It was liberating and heartbreaking all at once. For nearly a year, our contact had been minimal. That is why the text from my mother inviting me to dinner at Le Bernardin was so surprising. I stared at my phone for 10 full minutes, trying to decipher the subtext of those few words. Important family celebration. Le Bernardin at 7. Dress appropriately. The call from my mother came on a Wednesday afternoon, interrupting my focus during a complex coding problem. I almost declined it out of habit, but something made me answer. Ava, darling. My mother's voice rang with unusual warmth. We are having an important family dinner next Friday. Your father and I would love for you to join us. I nearly dropped my phone. After months of virtual silence, this sudden invitation was disorienting. What is the occasion? I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. Oh, it is a celebration, something special. We will be at Le Bernardin. You know it, right? That wonderful seafood restaurant. 7 o'clock sharp, and please wear something nice. The slight emphasis on nice was typical. No matter what I wore, it was never quite right in my mother's eyes. But Le Bernardin was one of the most exclusive restaurants in New York City. This was not their usual style for a routine family dinner. Who will be there? I asked, already calculating the dynamics. All of us, of course. Your father and I, James, Amanda. Oh, and Thomas will join us too. Thomas was someone new. I made a mental note to ask about him. After hanging up, I sat in silence, emotions warring within me. Hope flickered dangerous and bright. Perhaps this was an olive branch, a recognition of my place in the family. Maybe my absence over the past year had been noticed, even missed. The practical part of me that had been burned so many times urged caution, but the child still seeking parental approval won out. I texted my best friend Zoe immediately. Family dinner invitation, Le Bernardin. Should I go? Zoe's response was quick. Danger zone, but I know you will go anyway. Call me before and after. She knew me too well. Despite everything, despite the years of disappointment, I wanted to believe this time would be different. The next week, I found myself doing something I had sworn not to do again, trying to impress my family. I spent an entire Saturday shopping for the perfect outfit, eventually selecting a navy blue cocktail dress that was elegant without being flashy. It cost nearly $1,000 in extravagance. I rarely allowed myself, but I wanted to walk in, feeling confident. As I prepared for the dinner, memories of previous family gatherings flooded back. My college graduation dinner when my father spent the entire meal discussing James's new job. My 30th birthday, when my mother gave Amanda more attention for helping with the cake than she gave to me, the supposed guest of honor. Each memory was a warning sign I deliberately ignored. The day of the dinner, I was uncharacteristically nervous. I changed my hairstyle twice, opted for subtle makeup that highlighted my features without being too dramatic, and even painted my nails a sophisticated shade of burgundy. The reflection in the mirror looked polished and professional, a woman who had succeeded on her own terms. They cannot hurt you unless you let them, I told my reflection firmly. 2 hours before the dinner, I received a text from my mother. Looking forward to seeing you tonight. Big news to celebrate. Those words sent my mind racing. What big news? Had something significant happened that they wanted to share with me in person? A medical diagnosis? A family move? For a wild moment, I wondered if perhaps they were finally proud of me for something. Maybe they had heard about the industry award I had received last month, though I had not told them about it. The taxi ride to the restaurant was a journey through emotional turbulence. Every block brought me closer to people who had the unique power to make me feel simultaneously loved and worthless. By the time we pulled up to the elegant facade of Le Bernardin, my palms were sweating despite the cool evening air. "You got this," I whispered to myself as I stepped out onto the sidewalk, smoothed down my dress, and walked toward the entrance with practiced confidence. Whatever awaited me inside, I was no longer a child desperate for approval. I was Ava Bennett, successful software engineer and strong, independent woman. The maitre d' smiled as I approached. "Good evening, madam. Do you have a reservation?" "I am meeting the Bennett party," I replied, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. "Ah, yes, they have already arrived. Please follow me." As we walked through the restaurant toward whatever awaited me, I took a deep breath and lifted my chin. Hope and trepidation battled within me with each step toward my family. The maitre d' led me through Le Bernardin's main dining room, past tables of New York elite enjoying world-class seafood under crystal chandeliers. The restaurant hummed with quiet conversation, the clink of fine china, and the subtle movements of impeccably trained staff. In my navy dress and modest pearl earrings, I looked like I belonged among the well-heeled diners, though my racing heart told a different story. We approached a private dining area toward the back of the restaurant, separated from the main room by frosted glass doors. Through the translucent barrier, I could make out the silhouettes of my family already seated and engaged in animated conversation. When the door opened, 5 heads turned toward me with varying degrees of enthusiasm. My father, Derek, his silver hair perfectly coiffed, gave a perfunctory nod. "Ava, you made it." Not "glad you could come" or "wonderful to see you." Just acknowledgement of my physical presence. My mother, Sophia, rose halfway from her seat, air kissing in my general direction. "Darling, there you are. We were just about to order appetizers." Her eyes did a quick assessment of my appearance, lingering momentarily on my shoes, but she offered no comment. James, looking more like our father each year, lifted his water glass in a mock toast. "The prodigal sister returns," he said with the smirking smile that had always made me feel small. At 38, he had the confident air of someone who had never questioned his place in the world. Amanda beamed, though her smile did not quite reach her eyes. "Ava, I love that dress. Is it new?" Before I could answer, she turned to the man beside her. "Thomas, this is my sister Ava. She works with computers or something." Thomas stood and extended his hand, the only genuine greeting I had received. "Great to meet you, Ava. Amanda has told me a lot about you." I doubted that very much, but appreciated his effort. He was tall and conventionally handsome, with the polished look of old money. His handshake was firm, his smile seemingly sincere. "Please sit down," my mother instructed, gesturing to the only empty chair, which I now noticed was positioned slightly apart from the main group, creating a subtle but unmistakable separation. As I took my seat, I noticed other details that made my stomach tighten. The table was set with elaborate floral arrangements. Champagne was already chilling in sterling silver buckets, and a "congratulations" banner was partially visible on the far wall. This was clearly a celebration, but no one had yet mentioned what we were celebrating. "You are looking well, Ava," my father said, with the distracted tone he always used when making obligatory small talk with me. "Business going okay?" Before I could respond, a waiter appeared with menus, and my father immediately turned his attention to the wine list. I had been dismissed. My mother leaned toward Thomas. "We reserved this special private room weeks ago. Derek knows the executive chef personally." "Amazing connections as always, Mrs. Bennett," Thomas replied clearly, already well-versed in the art of pleasing my mother. As I opened my menu, I overheard James telling my father about his recent promotion. Senior Vice President of Acquisitions, youngest in the firm's history. "That is my boy," my father said, his voice warm with the pride he had never directed toward me. "We will need another bottle of champagne to celebrate properly." I glanced at the congratulations banner with new understanding. This dinner was for James. Of course it was. I should have known I would not be the center of attention. I never was. Then Amanda squealed and extended her left hand toward my mother. "Mom, I cannot wait any longer." Look. A massive diamond ring glittered on her finger, catching the light from every angle. My mother gasped appropriately, though her lack of surprise suggested she had already known. "Is that what I think it is?" she asked with theatrical excitement. Thomas put his arm around Amanda. I asked Amanda to marry me last weekend. She made me the happiest man alive when she said yes. Suddenly, the purpose of this family celebration became crystal clear. It was a dual celebration for my golden siblings James's promotion and Amanda's engagement. I was an afterthought invited as a courtesy, or perhaps to prevent questions about my absence. My father raised his water glass. To James and his incredible achievement, and to Amanda and Thomas on their engagement. We could not be prouder of both of you. As everyone clinked glasses, I noticed mine was still empty. No one had poured water for me. It was such a small thing, but somehow it perfectly encapsulated my place in this family. I reached for the water pitcher and served myself while my family continued congratulating each other, their voices creating a familiar symphony from which my notes were always missing. So, I said, trying to join the conversation, "Congratulations to both of you. That is really exciting news." James nodded absently. Amanda gave a quick, "Thanks, sis," before turning back to show her ring to my mother again. As waiters approached to take our orders, I finally understood why I had been invited. Not to be included, but to witness their triumphs, to see what real achievement looked like in the Bennett family. I was there as an audience member, not a participant in the celebration. Thomas caught my eye across the table and gave me a small, almost sympathetic smile. I wondered what Amanda had told him about me, or if he was simply picking up on the family dynamics playing out before him. Either way, his was the only acknowledgement I had received since sitting down. The head waiter approached with a flourish. "Good evening, esteemed guests. Welcome to Le Bernardin. May I start by telling you about our specials this evening?" As he began describing elaborate seafood preparations with French terminology and seasonal ingredients, I noticed my father and James exchanging knowing looks, my mother smiling with anticipation, and Amanda practically bouncing in her seat. Something was coming, and based on past experience, I knew it would not be good for me. The sommelier had just finished describing the wine options when it happened. The waiter approached our table with a stack of elegant leather-bound menus, distributing them with white-gloved hands to everyone at the table. My father received his with a nod. My mother accepted hers with a practiced smile. James, Amanda, and Thomas were each handed the same beautiful menu with Le Bernardin embossed in gold on the cover. Then the waiter turned to me. But instead of the leather-bound menu, he hesitated, looking uncomfortable as he pulled out what appeared to be a folded paper menu with Chinese characters printed in red and gold. "For the lady," he said quietly, avoiding eye contact as he placed a takeout menu from Golden Dragon in front of me. For a moment, I thought it was a mistake. My hand froze midway to the menu as I looked up at the waiter in confusion. He would not meet my eyes, already turning away with palpable discomfort. The silence at the table lasted only seconds, but felt eternal. Then my father cleared his throat. "We did not want to waste money on your dinner, Ava. We are celebrating James and Amanda tonight, and the entrees here start at $80. We know you do not appreciate fine dining anyway." I stared at him, unable to process what was happening. The takeout menu sat before me like a slap across my face. The Golden Dragon was a cheap Chinese restaurant around the corner from Le Bernardin, the kind of place that delivered food in plastic containers with soy sauce packets. "You can order something from there, and we will have someone pick it up for you," my mother added, as if she were being generous. "The egg rolls are supposed to be quite good." James snickered behind his menu. Amanda at least had the decency to look slightly uncomfortable, though she did nothing to intervene. Thomas's expression was unreadable as he studied his menu with sudden intensity. "Is this a joke?" I finally managed to ask, my voice barely audible. "Do not be dramatic, Ava," my mother replied. "We are just being practical. This is a special celebration for your brother and sister. The reservation was quite difficult to get, but we wanted you to be included somehow." Included? The word caught in my throat. This was their idea of inclusion, inviting me to sit at their table, but not partake in the same meal, making me order takeout while they enjoyed a world-class dining experience. "Look," my father said with growing impatience, "we are spending over $1,000 on dinner tonight. James just made senior VP. Amanda is marrying into the Whitfield family. These are achievements worth celebrating. When you have something similar to celebrate, perhaps we will splurge on your dinner too." the casual cruelty of his words hit me like physical blows. My professional accomplishments, my independence, my character, none of it registered as achievement in his eyes. I was 34 years old and still seeking validation from people who had never valued me. "The seafood tower to start, I think," my father said to the waiter, completely moving on from the humiliation he had just inflicted. "And bring us a bottle of the Montrachet Grand Cru, the 2015." I glanced at the wine list I had briefly seen. That bottle cost $400. He would spend that on wine, but could not bear to buy me dinner. As my family began ordering elaborate appetizers and entrees, discussing the merits of various preparations with the enthusiastic interest of people who had never questioned their right to occupy space, I sat silently, the takeout menu untouched before me. Each selection they made twisted the knife deeper. "The caviar course for the table," my mother instructed. "I will have the seared foie gras to start, then the poached lobster," James declared. "The scallops sound divine," Amanda cooed, leaning into Thomas. "What are you having, darling?" Thomas glanced at me before answering, the only one who seemed aware of the ongoing humiliation. "Perhaps the sea bass," he said quietly. When all eyes turned to me, expectant, the waiter hovering awkwardly, I realized they actually expected me to order from the takeout menu. This was not just a symbolic gesture or a cruel joke. They genuinely intended for me to sit in one of the finest restaurants in New York City, eating takeout Chinese food, while they dined on lobster and foie gras. A memory suddenly surfaced from my childhood. I was 8 years old, and my mother had taken James and Amanda for ice cream after school. I had been told I could not go because I had not finished my chores, though I distinctly remembered completing them. When they returned, Amanda tauntingly ate her ice cream cone in front of me. When I complained to my mother, she said, "Next time you will know better." I never did learn what I had done wrong. Now, 26 years later, I was still being punished for unspecified failures while forced to watch others being rewarded. As my father ordered another round of cocktails, I felt something inside me finally irrevocably break. And in that breaking, I found clarity. I looked at the takeout menu, then at my father's smug expression, my mother's practiced indifference, James's barely concealed amusement, and Amanda's careful avoidance of my eyes. I saw with perfect clarity what I had been denying for decades. This would never change. No achievement of mine would ever be enough. No success would ever make them see me. As my father instructed the waiter on exactly how he wanted his salmon prepared, listing preferences with the entitlement of someone who has never been denied anything, I reached a decision that would change everything. I placed both hands flat on the crisp white tablecloth. The conversation around me continued, my presence all but forgotten, as my family discussed their food choices and congratulated themselves on their good fortune. The takeout menu sat untouched before me, a symbol of my designated place in the family hierarchy. Without a word, I stood up. No one noticed at first, so accustomed were they to overlooking me. It was only when I pushed in my chair with deliberate care that my mother glanced up. "Ava, where are you going? The waiter needs your order from the Chinese menu." I did not respond. With measured steps, I walked away from the table, past the puzzled waiter, and through the frosted glass doors. In the main restaurant, I approached the maitre d' station, where an elegant woman in a perfectly tailored suit greeted me with a professional smile. "May I help you, madame?" "Yes," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I need to speak with the manager regarding my reservation." Within moments, a distinguished man in his 50s appeared. "Marcel Dupont, General Manager. How may I assist you?" "I need to verify something about the reservation for the Bennett party in the private dining room." He consulted his tablet. "Certainly. The reservation was made under the name Ava Bennett, party of 6 at 7 p.m. My name. They had used my name for the reservation. A strange calm settled over me as pieces fell into place. "May I ask how the reservation was secured? Was a credit card required?" Marcel nodded. "Yes, as with all our reservations, we required credit card details to hold the table. A card under the name Ava Bennett was provided." My credit card? My father had somehow used my credit card information to make this reservation. perhaps from a previous family dinner I had paid for or through my mother, who might have asked for it under some pretense. The violation was breathtaking in its casual entitlement. "Thank you," I said, decision crystallizing with perfect clarity. "I want to confirm that as the person who made this reservation, I am the host of this dinner." "That is correct, Ms. Bennett. The reservation and table are in your name. And if I wish to change anything about this reservation or the service, that would be my prerogative as the host." Marcel straightened slightly. "Of course. How may we adjust your experience this evening?" I smiled, feeling a sense of control I had never experienced with my family. "First, I am reclaiming my seat at the table. Second, I will have the regular menu, not the takeout menu that was provided to me. Third, I would like to see the wine list again. The most comprehensive one you have." His eyebrows raised slightly at the mention of the takeout menu, but his professional demeanor never faltered. "Of course, Ms. Bennett. I will personally attend to this matter immediately. Please follow me." As we returned to the private dining room, I felt as if I were floating detached from the anxiety that had ruled my interactions with my family for decades. Marcel opened the door for me, and all conversation at the table halted as we entered. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcel announced with the authoritative tone of someone used to commanding rooms of powerful people, "I would like to clarify that tonight's host is Ms. Ava Bennett. She will be making any and all decisions regarding the service this evening." My father's face darkened. "There must be some mistake. I am paying for this dinner." Marcel turned to me, deferring completely. I smiled. "No, father. Actually, it seems I am paying for dinner tonight. My credit card is holding the reservation." I took my seat again, accepting the leather-bound menu Marcel presented to me with a flourish. I believe we were about to order. The shock around the table was palpable. My mother's perfectly composed face showed cracks of confusion. James stared with his mouth slightly open. Amanda looked to Thomas as if seeking guidance on how to react. And my father, always in control, seemed momentarily speechless. "This is ridiculous," he finally sputtered. "We are celebrating James and Amanda tonight." "And we still are," I replied calmly. "But as the host, I will be making some adjustments to the arrangements." I turned to the waiter who had brought me the takeout menu earlier. "I will start with the caviar service, then the seared scallops, followed by the lobster. And please bring me a glass of the Cru Grand Cuvée while I decide on wine for the table." The waiter, clearly relieved to be treating me properly, nodded enthusiastically. "Excellent choices, madame." My father leaned across the table, lowering his voice to a harsh whisper. "Ava, stop this nonsense immediately. You cannot afford this meal." I met his gaze steadily. "Actually, father, I can. My startup was acquired last year. I am now a senior engineering director with stock options worth more than you might imagine. But you would know that if you had ever asked about my career." As my champagne arrived, I raised the glass slightly. "To family celebrations," I said. "All of them, including my promotion last month to head of engineering overseeing a team of 60 developers. It must have slipped your minds to congratulate me." The silence that followed was broken only when Thomas, surprising everyone, raised his water glass. "Congratulations, Ava. That is a remarkable achievement." "Thank you, Thomas," I replied, taking a sip of my champagne. It was exquisite, the tiny bubbles dancing on my tongue, with notes of apple and brioche. Worth every penny of its $50 per glass price tag. I studied the wine list with deliberate care, aware of my father's growing agitation. "I think we should have the Chateau Margaux with dinner," I said to the sommelier. "The 2010 vintage." My father nearly choked. The wine I had selected cost $1,200. The sommelier beamed. "An exceptional choice, madame. One of our finest offerings." "Ava, be reasonable." My mother interjected, her voice tight with tension. "This is excessive." "Is it?" I replied. "I thought we were celebrating James's promotion, Amanda's engagement, my promotion. All worthy of the best, would not you agree? Unless some achievements matter more than others in this family." The sommelier tactfully retreated, promising to return with the wine. In the uncomfortable silence that followed, I ordered several of the most expensive items on the menu: more caviar, the black truffle pasta, the Wagyu beef supplement, additional lobster. With each item, my father's face grew more strained, his complexion paling noticeably. "I cannot let you do this. he finally declared, turning to Marcel, who had remained nearby. "Cancel these orders. We will have what I originally requested." Marcel looked to me. "Ms. Bennett, your preference." "The orders stand," I said firmly. "Every single one. And please ensure that everything is charged to the card on file. My card." My father stood abruptly. "This dinner is over. We are leaving." "You are welcome to leave, father," I replied unfazed. "But as I made the reservation, the table remains mine until I choose to relinquish it, and I am not finished with my celebration." He stared at me, unused to being challenged, especially by me. "You have lost your mind," he hissed. "No," I said, looking him directly in the eyes. "I have found my voice. There is a difference." My father remained standing, his hands gripping the edge of the table knuckles, white with tension. The elegant dining room suddenly felt too small to contain the decades of unspoken resentment now bubbling to the surface. "Sit down, Derek," my mother whispered urgently. "People are starting to notice." That was my mother's greatest fear. Always, what would people think? Appearance mattered more than substance, perception more than truth. My father slowly lowered himself back into his chair, but his rage remained palpable, radiating across the table. "You have no right," he said, each word precise and cutting. "I have every right," I replied calmly. "Just as you had the right to hand me a takeout menu while everyone else received the regular menu. Just as you had the right to use my credit card without my permission." I turned to the approaching waiter. "The truffle pasta as well, please, for the table." James leaned forward, adopting the mediator role that suited his self-image as the reasonable one. "Ava, you are overreacting. It was just a joke about the takeout menu." "Was it jokes are meant to be funny, James? Who was laughing?" "You, father. At whose expense?" I took another sip of my champagne, savoring both its taste and the moment. And if it was just a joke, why did no one correct it? Why did father explicitly say he did not want to waste money on my dinner? Amanda shifted uncomfortably in her seat. "We did not mean to hurt your feelings." "You never do," I said. "That is the problem. The hurt is incidental collateral damage to maintaining the family hierarchy. You and James at the top, me somewhere below, not quite deserving of the same consideration." The sommelier approached with the Chateau Margaux, presenting it with reverence before beginning the opening ritual. My father made a last attempt to assert control. "Do not open that bottle," he commanded. "We will not be having it." The sommelier paused, looking to me for direction. I nodded for him to continue. "Please proceed. My father is just concerned about the cost, but I assure you it is not an issue." As he uncorked the bottle, I turned back to my family. "Did you know that my company's technology was featured in Wired magazine last month? Or that I led the team that developed a security protocol now used by 3 major financial institutions? Probably not because you have never asked about my work." "We have always supported your computer interests," my mother said defensively. "Have you?" "When I graduated from MIT with honors, Dad asked why I had not considered a more suitable career. When I got my first job, Mom suggested I should find something with better work-life balance, so I could focus on finding a husband. When I moved to New York, neither of you visited my apartment for 2 years." The sommelier poured a taste of the wine for me. I swirled it in the glass, inhaled its complex aroma, and took a small sip. It was extraordinary, with layers of dark fruit cedar and spice, the tannins perfectly integrated after years of aging. "Excellent," I confirmed. "Please serve everyone." "Ava, stop this," my father demanded as the deep red liquid filled his glass. "You have made your point." "Have I? What exactly do you think my point is, father?" He did not answer, which was answer enough. He did not know because he had never truly listened to me. The first courses began arriving, a parade of culinary artistry. Scallops garnished with edible flowers and truffle emulsion, foie gras torchon with port reduction, caviar service with traditional accompaniments. The table was transformed into a display of luxury that even my status-conscious family could not help but appreciate despite their anger. "You know," I said conversationally as I spread caviar on a blini, "I have always wondered what I did to deserve being treated differently. Was it because I was not athletic like James? Not socially adept like Amanda? Or was it simply that I was the middle child, easier to overlook? We never treated you differently, my mother protested weakly. Christmas 2010, I replied. James received a new BMW. Amanda got a trip to Paris. I received a sweater from Macy's and a $100 gift card. College was expensive that year, my father muttered. It was expensive for me too, I countered. I worked 20 hours a week at the campus library while carrying a full course load. Meanwhile, Amanda's apartment in Greenwich Village cost more monthly than my entire semester's housing. You had a scholarship, James interjected, as if that justified everything. Yes, a partial scholarship I earned through academic excellence. That did not cover books, housing, food, or the remaining tuition. I graduated with $30,000 in student loans that I paid off myself. What loans did you have, James? He looked away, unwilling to admit the answer. None. Thomas, who had been quietly observing this family drama, finally spoke. I think what Ava is expressing is that she has felt a pattern of inequity in how she has been treated compared to James and Amanda. And tonight's takeout menu incident seems to have crystallized that feeling. My mother shot him a look of betrayal. You do not understand our family dynamics, Thomas. Perhaps not, he conceded. But I do understand that humiliating someone in public is rarely justified. Thank you, Thomas, I said, genuinely appreciative of his insight. That is precisely it. Tonight was not an isolated incident. It was just the most blatant example of a lifetime pattern. The main courses arrived, the servers choreographing their movements with practiced precision. My lobster was presented with a saffron emulsion, while the Wagyu beef I had ordered for the table was sliced tableside, its marbling evident even in the soft lighting. This is wasteful extravagance, my father said, though I noticed he did not hesitate to accept a slice of the premium beef. Is it wasteful when you do it, Father? Or only when I do? I asked. You were perfectly comfortable ordering $400 wine before you knew you would be paying for it. As we ate in tense silence, I felt no pleasure in the exquisite food. This was not about the meal or even the money. It was about recognition, about demanding the respect I had never been freely given. The dinner continued with minimal conversation. My mother made strained attempts at small talk. James checked his phone repeatedly. Amanda and Thomas whispered to each other occasionally. My father ate methodically, his jaw tight with suppressed anger. When the dessert menus arrived, I ordered one of everything. We should experience the full range of the pastry chef's talents, I explained to the delighted waiter. My father finally exploded. Enough. This childish display has gone on long enough. Childish, I repeated, my voice dangerously calm. Like inviting someone to a celebration and then humiliating them, like using someone's credit card without permission, like decades of treating one child as less valuable than the others. We have given you everything. He insisted, his face flushed. Education opportunities, family connections. You gave James and Amanda everything, I corrected. You gave me scraps and called it enough. The check arrived in a discreet leather folder. I opened it without hesitation. The total, including wine, appetizers, main courses, desserts, and gratuity, came to just over $1,900. My father's face blanched when he glimpsed the figure. This is highway robbery, he sputtered. No, Father, I replied, inserting my credit card without hesitation. This is my choice, just as it was your choice to bring me here tonight. Hand me a takeout menu, and make it clear how little you value me. My mother dabbed at her eyes with her napkin, a performance of distress I had seen many times. After everything we have done for you, this is how you repay us, by embarrassing us. I signed the receipt, adding an additional gratuity for the staff who had navigated our uncomfortable family dynamic with such professionalism. I learned from the best mother. Embarrassment seems to be our family's love language. I stood, smoothed my dress, and looked at each of them in turn. Thank you all for a most illuminating evening. James, congratulations on your promotion. Amanda, Thomas, best wishes on your engagement. Thomas half rose from his seat. Ava, I shook my head. It is okay, Thomas. This was a long time coming. As I walked away from the table, my father called after me. Do not expect to be welcomed back until you apologize for this behavior. I turned, meeting his gaze one final time. Do not expect me to come back at all. With those words, I walked out of Le Bernardin, and symbolically at least out of my family's power to hurt me. The cool night air felt like freedom against my skin as I stepped onto the sidewalk and hailed a taxi, leaving behind not just an expensive meal, but the weight of seeking approval I would never receive. The taxi ride home that night was surreal. New York City glittered around me, its lights blurred by unexpected tears. They were not tears of sadness, but of release, like the breaking of a fever after a long illness. I had finally stood up for myself, and while the confrontation had been painful, it had also been necessary. My phone began buzzing almost immediately. First my mother, then James, then a series of increasingly angry texts from my father. I silenced the notifications and stared out the window instead, watching the city pass by. For the first time in my life, I felt no obligation to respond, no need to justify myself or make peace for the family's comfort. When I reached my apartment, I kicked off my heels, poured myself a glass of wine, and called Zoe. "So," she asked immediately, "how bad was it?" "Worse than you can imagine," I replied, proceeding to tell her everything from the takeout menu to my father's face when he saw the final bill. "Holy shit, Ava," Zoe breathed when I finished. "You actually did it. You finally stood up to them." "I did," I confirmed, still somewhat surprised at myself. "And I just spent almost $2,000 on dinner." "Worth every penny," Zoe declared firmly. This was decades in the making. We talked for another hour, analyzing every moment, every reaction. Zoe had been witness to my family dynamics for years, had seen the pattern I had tried so hard to deny. Her validation that night was a balm to my raw emotions. The next morning, I woke to find 17 missed calls and 32 text messages from family members. My mother's texts oscillated between guilt trips, "How could you hurt us this way?" and attempts at reconciliation. "Let's talk about this calmly." James was more direct. "You made a complete fool of yourself." Amanda's messages were the most surprising, a mixture of defensiveness and what seemed like genuine confusion about why I was so upset. My father had sent only one text. "Your behavior last night was unacceptable. When you are ready to apologize, we will discuss your place in this family going forward." My place in this family, as if it were a privilege that could be granted or withdrawn based on my compliance. That single phrase crystallized everything for me. After reading the messages, I made a decision that felt radical and necessary. I blocked their numbers. Not permanently, but as a boundary I needed while processing everything that had happened. The immediate relief was physical, a loosening in my chest that I had not realized was there. That same day, I called a therapist whose name I had saved months ago but never contacted. Dr. Lillian Park had been recommended by a colleague who had worked through her own family issues. When I explained what had happened, Dr. Park offered me an appointment for the following week. Family dynamics like these do not develop overnight, and they cannot be resolved overnight either, she told me gently. But recognizing the pattern is the first step toward breaking it. The weeks following the dinner were a time of intense self-reflection. In weekly sessions with Dr. Park, I began unpacking the patterns that had defined my family relationships. I realized how deeply I had internalized the message that I was somehow less deserving than my siblings, how that belief had affected everything from my romantic relationships to my career decisions. "You have been seeking validation from people who are incapable of giving it," Dr. Park observed during one particularly difficult session. "Not because you are unworthy, but because their own limitations prevent them from seeing your worth." That insight was transformative. For the first time, I understood that my parents' treatment of me reflected their deficiencies, not mine. After a month of therapy and self-imposed distance from my family, I began to build new routines centered on self-care and genuine connections. I hosted small dinner parties for friends who valued me. I joined a women in tech mentoring program. I adopted a cat named Pixel, who asked nothing of me but food and occasional attention. 6 months after the fateful dinner, I received a letter, not a text or email, but an actual handwritten letter. It was from Thomas Amanda's fiancé. I almost discarded it unopened, but curiosity won out. "Dear Ava," he wrote, I have been thinking about that dinner at Le Bernardin for months now. What I witnessed that night made me deeply uncomfortable, not because of your actions, which I found completely justified, but because of how your family treated you. As someone new to the Bennett family dynamics, I saw with fresh eyes what everyone else seemed to accept as normal. It was not normal, and it was not right. He continued explaining that the incident had caused him to question his relationship with Amanda, to look more critically at the values she had been raised with. They had postponed their engagement and were now in couples counseling, working through what he described as significant differences in how we view family relationships. I want you to know, he concluded, that your stand that night affected me profoundly. It made me realize that accepting mistreatment, whether of oneself or others, is not a virtue, but a form of self-betrayal. I hope you are well and finding peace. The letter moved me more than I expected, not because I wanted to have impacted Amanda's relationship, but because someone had truly seen me that night, had witnessed what had happened, and validated that it was wrong. My mother was the first family member to reach out in a way that was not accusatory. 7 months after the dinner, she called from a number I did not recognize, circumventing my blocks. "Ava," she said when I answered, her voice uncharacteristically hesitant, "please do not hang up." "I am listening," I replied neutrally. "I have been doing some thinking," she said. "About that night at Le Bernardin. About a lot of things, actually." She did not offer a full apology, not really. But she did acknowledge in her own limited way that perhaps I had been treated differently over the years. "We may have had certain blind spots," was how she phrased it. It was not everything I had hoped for, but it was more than I had expected. We began with occasional phone calls, carefully neutral and brief. I maintained firm boundaries, ending conversations when they veered into guilt trips or criticism. Slowly, she began to adapt to respect those boundaries, though I suspect it was more from fear of losing contact completely than from genuine understanding. My father remained estranged. James sent a perfunctory birthday email months later. Amanda and I exchanged cautious texts after her engagement to Thomas officially ended. These limited contacts were enough for me. I no longer sought their approval or even their understanding. I had found something more valuable: my own voice, my own standards for how I deserved to be treated. A year after the Le Bernardin incident, I hosted a dinner party in my apartment. I had recently been promoted again, this time to vice president of engineering, and wanted to celebrate with people who genuinely supported me. Zoe was there, along with colleagues who had become friends, neighbors who had become confidants, and even Dr. Park, who had moved from therapist to mentor over the months. As we gathered around my dining table, enjoying food, I had cooked myself sharing stories and laughter. I realized something profound. This was what family should feel like. Not the constant striving for approval, not the careful navigation of unspoken hierarchies, but the simple joy of being accepted exactly as you are. "To finding your people," Zoe toasted, raising her glass, "and to never settling for less than you deserve." As our glasses clinked together, I felt a completeness that no family dinner had ever given me. The journey had been difficult, the confrontation painful, but the peace I had found on the other side was worth every moment. The hardest lesson I had learned was not about my family at all, but about myself. That sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from people who cannot love you properly, even when those people are family. That sometimes you have to create your own table rather than begging for scraps at someone else's. I had spent 34 years trying to earn a place in my family's story. Now at 35, I was finally writing my own. Have you ever had to stand up to family members who treated you unfairly? Share your experiences in the comments below. If my story resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to hear more stories about finding your voice and your worth. Remember that sometimes the family we choose is more important than the family we're born into. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I hope it helps you find the courage to honor your own worth.